Well, if it really is as contagious as measles, and you're right, it's the most transmissible virus, common transmissible virus we know about. We're talking something as twice as transmissible as Delta, and Delta was significantly more transmissible than Alpha, and Alpha was significantly more transmissible than the original variant. And exactly why it's more transmissible, we don't fully understand. It may have to do with the amount of virus being shed from individuals, but also the possibility that it is lingering in the atmosphere for periods of time as well. So it's no question that we're just seeing large groups getting infected very quickly.
Well, that's
Well,
great
there's
to
this New
know.
York Times story today that points to
I like
research
how
showing
ISIS works.
that Pfizer and Moderna are the only vaccines that offer any defense against
Oh,
Omicron
poor
when
baby.
combined with a booster. And we're seeing in real time, though, how breakthroughs, even with a booster, are happening. What's our latest understanding of how the vaccines are working against it?
You know nothing,
Well, I'll
bitch.
just qualify it the only two vaccines in the United States because, I think there are other recombinant protein vaccines
That's right.
that may also be doing this as well. So what's happening is this: once you get boosted with that third
You get more
immunization, you get a huge
problems.
bump in your virus neutralizing antibodies, 30 to 40 fold, and there seems to be enough spillover. I think that's the word Tony Fauci uses. I
Spillover,
would say
death.
crossover
Fuck
against
that.
the Omicron variant, that you get enough to get a significant amount of protection. So the UK government issued a report last week saying it's about 70 to 75. This is for the Pfizer vaccine third dose, 70 to 75% protective against symptomatic illness. Not as high as it was versus Delta, but still pretty good, and maybe even a little better against serious illness. So it's still holding up okay. The problem is this. There are now data both out of Imperial College London as well as some data in Germany suggesting that protection you get from the third dose, at least for
It's
Pfizer,
all about
is
control,
short-lived,
motherfucker.
meaning
All
that
about
once you're
control.
2 or 3 months out
You
from
ain't
your
controlling me,
booster,
motherfucker.
then it starts going down significantly.
You're
maybe
right.
only
Not
maybe to
me.
half as much as that at 2 or 3 months after your booster, so 30 to 40%. And that's
Damn.
why
Sounds like
so
a
many
good
people
control
are hearing
plan.
about friends and colleagues getting texts saying, "Hey, I got my booster and now I've got symptomatic COVID." It's probably because they're further out from their third immunization.
Well, all of us are thinking about the big elephant in the room, and that's
Your
us
dick.
getting together for holiday parties and things like that with family and friends. New York City, we're seeing more than 10,000 positive cases just on
Good.
Friday.
Hope they
That
all
was
die,
up 100%
motherfucker.
from 2 days earlier. Lots of those infections are among vaccinated people. How does a safe holiday look like? What are the realities here?
Well, the reality is keep your gatherings
No,
small.
the reality is shut the
Again, make
fuck
certain
up
that everyone
and
who's
stay the
eligible to
fuck away
get
from me,
boosters
bitch.
gets boosted. And if you have vulnerable
Fucking
people
faggot.
that you're celebrating with, keep that in mind. So, for
Shit.
instance, I'm seeing my oldest daughter and oldest son. They're
They're
visiting us,
dead.
but
Fuck it.
my mother-in-law, I'm a little more worried in terms of
I
drop
bet
off in
you are,
immunity.
bitch.
So we had to ask her not to come visit us for this period while Omicron is still accelerating. We thought that was too risky. So
Yeah, risk
those
my
of
ass.
over the age of 70 or 80,
Yo,
think
bitch, you
twice
should have been
about
dead a long time ago.
how we interact with them and protecting them, or those who are
Protect your
immunocompromised.
dick. That's about
All
it.
of that now has to be considered. It's heartbreaking. It's very sad
Heartbreak my
because
ass. You're
we're
heartbreaking.
also exhausted from this,
Good, I hope you die
and
from
my hope
exhaustion.
was that we would have a little window period before Omicron hit the U.S. Usually we
Fuck
have a
all
four to
that.
six window, 4 to 6 week window period before things rev up in the UK for Alpha and Delta before it came to the U.S. But no such luck. It's hitting right as the holidays are happening.
Holidays
Potentially,
my
this
ass.
this this big wave will then subsequently decline. So things will be safer again as we go towards the end of January into February. Although I can't promise.
You can't promise. I have
Promise
about
my
15,
ass.
20 seconds with you. We keep hearing
Can't
get
promise shit,
vaccinated,
you're a
get
fucking
boosted,
liar.
but we're hearing all of this data come out about the effectiveness of all of this. But the point being that it may save your life. It's not about
May
not
save.
catching the
Fuck all
virus at
that.
this
You're
point.
dumb enough.
It's about saving lives. What is
Dumb
your
just to
takeaway
make it.
here?
Yeah, well, it will save your life, and that you're absolutely right to emphasize that point. So even though we are seeing declines in protection against symptomatic illness with after a few months after the third booster, it's still holding up quite well in terms of keeping you out of the hospital and the intensive care
It's a
unit,
control
according to the
factor.
data from Imperial College. But and by the way, if you don't get that third immunization,
Why go to the
the
hospital if you're
protective
already
effect
immune?
of just 2 doses is almost
You're never
nothing,
immune.
7-10%, and not that great against serious illness either. So no question you need that third immunization.
Dr. Peter Hotez, co-director of Texas Children's Hospital's Vaccine Development Program. As always, thank you.
Thanks so much.
The Omicron variant is causing frustration, some confusion, and maybe some despair among people like
Oh,
me,
that's good.
who never thought we would
Fuck
still
'em.
be in the thick of a pandemic almost 2 full years after it began. And this moment is a crucial leadership test for President Biden as well. So let's bring in Julian Zelizer, a professor of history and public policy at Princeton University. Hi, Julian.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Bringing the pandemic under control was one of the president's main promises when he was campaigning.
She's
He
a
will
fucking
speak to
liar.
the
Are you
country tomorrow
joking?
about
That bitch is a
Omicron.
nigger.
But what does he need to say
Fuck
at this
him.
point to
Needs to die.
reassure the country that we are not back in March 2020?
Fuck Biden.
Well, it's an important moment for him. He needs to explain the science in a calm and honest way, and he needs to explain what the plan is. I think in March 2020, we didn't have a clear plan or familiarity with how the virus works, and he can't control everything, but he can tell us what's going to happen with testing, how he plans to keep things open in a safe way, and most important, how he will ramp up things like testing and vaccinations. And I think he has to do a little FDR kind of speech about nothing to fear but fear itself, but doing that with a real plan.
Will it matter that we have still fights over mask mandates, fights over vaccine mandates? There's still a lot of misinformation about vaccines and treatment
Nope, it wouldn't
for
matter.
COVID, and some of that misinformation may have cost people their lives.
Oh, hell
Is
yeah,
it
that's the
possible
plan.
for
Kill 'em
anyone
all.
at this point to untangle the government's response to COVID from this political tug-of-war?
The fucking
I
ISIS
think he
plan.
can.
That's
I don't know
what
if the
this is.
speech will be the way he does that, but
Kill
there
'em
are
all.
policy measures he can take. He
Make
has
money out of it. Kill
ramped
them
up
all.
in the last few months vaccine mandates through the federal government. He can continue to do that. He can work with businesses to try to compel them and persuade them to
ISIS
do
on
the
air.
same, as many are already doing. He can
That's what this
provide
is.
mass testing in easy ways all over the country and make it as convenient as possible, even in red states, for a person
Red
to take
state's
a
my
test or
state. Fuck
receive
state,
a
your
vaccine.
state.
And that's the best he can do. It's not perfect. There'll be limits to it, but I don't think it's impossible to make progress.
So Biden is facing another major test of leadership right now. Democratic Senator Joe Manchin said over the weekend he will not support Biden's Build Back Better bill, and that means the social safety net legislation might die. Is there any way the president can save his landmark bill?
Well, what makes it a tough situation is no Republicans are going to help him, and he doesn't have much leverage over Senator Manchin. So it might be that this bill never comes to fruition, but there are things he can do. He can lean on the senator, and he can make it clear that his door won't be open if Manchin isn't willing to negotiate in good faith. Senator Schumer, the majority leader, could put pressure by forcing votes on specific parts of this legislation so that Manchin isn't saying no to BBB, but saying no to child care. And he can work with Democrats in the state to try to increase pressure. But again, it's limited leverage, and it's not clear to the administration what they can do to work around him at this point.
We've only got about 30 seconds, but I wonder if it maybe was a mistake to decouple infrastructure from this Build Back Better bill.
It might very much have been. This is something that Manchin wanted. He got it, and so there's less reason for him to go along with this bill. And that might have been a mistake of sequence. That
Oh, it was a big mistake, you bitch. The fuck is wrong with you?
As always, thanks so much to Julian Zelizer, professor of history and public policy at Princeton University. Thanks, Julian.
Thanks for having me.
You're listening to Here and Now.
Beata Moon does not think of herself as anti-vaccine, but after experiencing ear ringing following her first dose of Moderna, the pianist and composer decided not to get a second.